In today's video, we'll be ranking each Nightlord based on the Nightlord, the difficulty, the weakness, and the arena design. First up is Tricephalos. Tricephalos's boss design is a really nice one. A three-headed dog with a giant sword on his back. And going onto his area design is nice. Put it simply, it's like every first phase boss's area design, with a few exceptions. His second phase area design has a few interesting quirks, having giant banners that are made out of fire appear, and he splits off into his three different separate versions of himself to attack the players. And his weaknesses are as follows: a holy weakness, 35%, a piercing 10 minus 10%, so that he takes more to both those weapon types, and he's quite resistant to madness and light. And his overall difficulty would be a solid 6 out of 10. He's not the hardest boss or the most challenging, but the concept of new players fighting him for the first time is pretty likely not too favourable. If you haven't fought it before, you would struggle. But if you're good at Souls games, it shouldn't be too hard. But for more experienced players, I would say a 4 out of 10. Now on to Adel. Adel's design is pretty cool. The concept of having a really strong non-flying dragon is really cool to see. Not very common we get many dragon type bosses that don't fly. His overall area design is kinda same as the other bosses, as I said with Tricephalos, but his second phase, where he turns sky purple and he does that ground slam, he's really not too difficult. He's weak to poison, and poison is not too hard to get in expeditions, and even with starting relics. For Iron Eye players, you can have the charge shot of your ult, shoot at Adel, and then he throws up, does an animation where he throws up and he's mobile for however long. And in that time period you can deal so much damage to him, it's not even funny. But his weaknesses are as follows. And his weaknesses are as following, displayed on screen. I would rate Adel a 5 out of 10. Now on to Sentient Pest. Sentient Pest's design overall is quite unique. A double boss that diverts attention from all the players or just the one. Its area design has a few small problems. It's pretty much the same as what every other first phase boss is, but to give Sentient Pest a bit of credit, its second phase has a flower like pattern that goes onto the ground, and most players would disagree that Sentient Pest's second phase is really not fun to fight, and I can agree with that. But once you kind of get a understanding of what is happening with Sentient Pest's second phase, it's not too hard to fight. You just have to be aware when second phase is, run away, and book it, basically. Now on to difficulty. As I've just said, that second phase is the problematic one. First phase is just lots of like poke damage, and the overall difficulty of Sentient Pest for new players, I would put it at 6 or 7, and for more experienced players who have actually a few, just say 10, 15 hours, or less than probably like 5 hours, I would say you would have a better understanding than the newer players. So I'll rate it as a 4 out of 10. And now on to Ogre. Ogre's entry to the arena is kinda cool. He appears kind of like little bubbles, and then he proceeds to then start the attacks. He uses quite a lot of long-ranged attacks, a lot of adds. There's a little like jellyfish that he summons. His second phase is not really that hard. It's really a range character check. If you got a range character, this shouldn't be hard, because all you gotta do, or just any character with a bow actually, or any ranged armaments, you should be able to then pop the like little nukes. And when he goes into that kind of curling into a ball in his second phase, or first phase even, that you just gotta use your ult to then pop him out of that, so then you don't get a sleep proc, and he does a bit of damage. His difficulty as a boss is not too hard. Ogre has a few weaknesses, lightning being one of them. I would say he's not overly challenging for many different Souls players. You just have to be aware of the sleep proc, and just kind of have to be aware of when he does the ads, you don't stay too close. But I would rate him at kind of in the area of a 2 out of 10. He's more of an Elden Beast type of boss. He runs away too much, and that's the problem. It just takes a really long time to fight him. Now starting with Libra. Libra's design and his boss arena, once you enter, where he's just stood there as a statue until you make a deal with him, is a really cool idea that FromSoft has made, where the boss gives you a buff, debuff, or whatever different kind of reward as a kind of way to help the player out with their fight, or could in turn ruin it. But the option of always refusing the deal is there, in case if you get a deal that is all debuffs or not what you want. But Libra's design is rather cool. He's a little goat, and he's really, really unique. He's one of my favorite bosses, as probably many others are for a lot of players. And his second phase is really nice. It's probably, without getting really into detail, his boss kind of fighting style is getting really up there physical, making sure the player knows the fundamentals of dodging, watching out for the holy lights, like holy attacks, making sure they're able to dodge it, and basically it's just a really fun boss fight to fight. Second and first phase are brilliant, and when he does that kind of meditation where he can, if you don't destroy all the little seals, he gets a buff if you don't destroy it, and he gets a debuff to his defense, I'm pretty sure, once you break all the seals. And Lever's area design is cool. It's quite similar to the other bosses, but once he kind of does those holy attacks where he does the ground pounds and all this other stuff, it makes for a really entertaining fight. And the difficulty, it depends if you got the resistant to elements buff, where his holy attacks actually get reduced, so he doesn't really stack the elements on you as fast. But besides that, his difficulty would be around first time players, probably a 7 or 8 out of 10, and for newer, for more experienced Soul players, I would put it as a, say, 6 out of 10. If you're running with randos and they end up getting down multiple times, and you're forced to solo a buff version of Libra, it can be challenging, but it's really enjoyable boss. Now moving on to Fulghor. Fulghor is an interesting boss design-wise. He's based off a centaur, and his attack patterns and first and second phase are both quite unique in more ways than one. His first phase, boss arena, is quite basic, pretty similar to the rest, but his entrance to the boss arena is quite unique in a way, but the overall feel of the boss with his attack patterns, how you're dodging them, how the movement is, how he's telegraphed his attacks, is quite easy to read if once you get a hang of it. And his second phase has a few nuances, that being that his second phase has a variety of moves where he switches up the pace of the fight, and he's changed how drastic the attacks from the first phase were to more desperate attacks that deal even more damage. His difficulty overall is around an 8 or 9 for new players. Has a lot of attacks where it's the timing of when he does his jump or his slam or his sword attack where he charges up the sword from sword swing and then he does a wind burst attack. It's about timing and trying to not roll too early or roll too late, but for advanced players, I would say he's roughly around a 6 out of 10. Not overly difficult, but once you get the pattern down, shouldn't be too hard. His weaknesses are as follows. Now on to Caligo. Caligo's entry to his boss arena is quite cool. It's a good demonstration of the boss we're about to fight, being a pretty cool 4-winged dragon. Caligo's moveset is not overly aggressive, it's more of a style of Elden Beast, with Caligo running about half the time. Caligo forms a lot of ice on top of the field with its ice breath, and it does a good amount of damage and builds up a lot of frostbite, which is where most of the damage is coming from. Caligo's second phase is quite cool with the style of music is played. It is a really good demonstration of how cool a dragon boss can be in concept and how exactly FromSoft has demonstrated its pretty peak. With Caligo's difficulty overall, I would rate it for new Souls players around a 9 out of 10. A 9 out of 10 is a bit debatable depending on how new the Soul player is, but for more advanced players I would have rated around a solid 3 out of 10. And the weaknesses as following. And now on to Night Aspect. Night Aspect is a pretty difficult first time final boss for most Soul players. The design of Night Aspect is really cool. His first phase is him walking towards you, dragging his sword, and then when you get him to half HP, he then pulls out another sword, starts to then alternate between charge attacks, then doing 3 swings. Then onto his second phase, he's now really cool. You fight him in front of like a void where he does that special attack where he literally cuts open the void and then it kind of makes a big like anime type move. and it's really cool, and then he does a big slam on the ground. But to get no damage at all done to you in that process, you just have to be really close to him when he does that slam, just roll. But it's a lot of damage if you miss roll, and then just load the damage. The concept of these fights is very like back and forth, just time the rolls, know when to counter. But if you're with 3 people, then you're able to divert aggro. And his area design is really cool, as I said, with his void in the background where he cuts it open, and then does a big slam. Very cool. And his difficulty for new Souls players, I would rate it as, because it's a 2-phase boss, roughly an 8 or 9 out of 10. And for advanced Souls players, I would rate it around, because even in solo runs, people will still have difficulties with him. I would rate it around a 7 out of 10. And his weaknesses are the following. And that should be it. That appreciate everybody for watching today's video. And just on a side note, that today's video is not ranking like how cool the boss is or how popular it is. It's just basically like what it would be like for new or advanced Souls players to fight against it. It's just the playstyle, weaknesses, area, and the boss in general. But in my opinion, of my top 3 bosses, will be Libra, Night Aspect, and Fulghor.